Now I'm going to get into the flirty fishing. Why these girls, they become hyper-religious. Remember I said to you, I've coined it as the love bombing born again experience. Like when you first come to the faith, it's like, oh my God, it's like they're on this adrenaline. It's like that high, you never get it again. After that, as the time goes on, you have to find other ways to still get that high because they become addicted. Anyway, let's jump straight into it. I'm going to be using Angel as my case study for today. I've seen many angels in my life. Do you know what I'm saying? I've been an angel as well. The thing is, she hasn't been around long enough, I don't think, to be indoctrinated through the lens of, but she could have been indoctrinated through the lens of you use everything to win souls for Christ. And part of that is your beauty, is your, because guys, I wouldn't describe her necessarily as that, but I've got to say it like this because of how sensitive TikTok is. But if you're, you know, shapely, whatever it is, you use that to bring souls to Christ. But anyway, I'm going to be using this as a case study. So based off the information that I've seen online, so I don't know the girl from nowhere, I'm psychoanalyzing this case. She's been doing up a lot of things, but it was the carnival one that really brought her to my attention because I just thought, what the hell are you wearing? And from then I started to unpack it a little bit more. There was another bit of content that I saw where she was giving out roses, and there were some man them that pulled up, and it was like they were like moving to her, and I was just thinking, it's just so inappropriate because guys can get the wrong idea as well. So let's get into it. So firstly, I want to look at and again, this is just my psychoanalysis. This isn't indefinite. This isn't based off facts. This is what she has put out there on social media that I'm using to create a bigger picture as a case study as to why girls like Angel end up in these hyper-religious environments and then they're out in these streets doing up this. All right. So trauma, loss, and conversion. So one of the big reoccurring patterns and themes that I see is bereavement and trauma. And as soon as I saw her posting a video crying about the loss of her mum, and respectfully RIP, because I don't joke with that type of stuff. It's really, really sad. But again, in the loss of her mum, this is a core attachment figure. This can destabilize a sense of self and security. So after loss, people often seek certainty, structure, and belonging, which is why they suddenly become born again or start to search for something to fill that void, that emptiness, because people feel like they're going off. So they start to seek for a deeper meaning of life because they've lost sense of self. So psychologists call this a trauma conversion or identity foreclosure, where someone adopts a rigid identity, e.g. I am now a Christian, street preacher. And I also saw this in Courtney Clark. You know, the one who tried to come for me. Courtney Clark's granddad passed as well. And then she started becoming all hyper-religious. So there's a trend of these girls doing it, yeah? And I will do some content on it as well. And so they adopt this rigid identity. I am now a Christian street preacher, or I am now born again, or whatever, to avoid dealing with overwhelming emotions. Because one thing that they do in these environments is they control your emotions. And it's like even when she was crying in the video, she was like, I'm so thankful to God for everything, because it's like, you shouldn't be showing this emotion. We have to be thankful. But after a while, being all like this and going out and preaching, after a while, you get burnt out and the reality sets in. Thanks for the follow, my love. Replacement attachment. Instead of processing grief, the hyper-religious environment or preaching becomes a substitute parent, soothing abandonment and providing a script for life. So again, all of those times that, you know, they might have spent with the parent or whatever, they're going out to these events on the streets, it's exasperated. It's religious psychosis. They can't sit with self. If they're sitting with self, they're going to start thinking about the memories. Their mom started to break down. So being out, it's a distraction. So they're forming a codependent relationship with this born again identity, and they think that they're putting on this personality of Christ, but it's not. Yeah. So now I'm going to look into it, because I do find, again, I'm not saying that angels come from this past, whatever, because again, I don't know her, but I'm going to say, let's say that someone similar to her or like her has a bit of a promiscuous past, yeah? Let's say that we're going to be looking at sexuality, identity, and the subconscious. So let's say, I'm not saying that she did, but let's say that she had a past, a promiscuous past, and using her body as currency. So if in her earlier life, she learned that her looks, body, flirtation, and sexuality were the main tools to get validation or safety by men, This becomes encoded in the subconscious as her default social strategy. So that's why I said that with the guys, that it's just anger, hypermasculinity, that's their social strategy. Yeah. But with the gal them, it's a softer tone. It's more, they put on the feminism a bit more, like selling themselves. And then they also talk a lot about their past as well as emotional manipulation. Oh, I used to this, used to be that, I used to be that. It's a different type of manipulation. Even after conversion, those subconscious scripts don't disappear. They simply get rebranded in a religious form. So instead of seducing for whatever it is that they want, to get what they want, whatever, to get on the table, bottles, whatever, she's now seducing with religious language. So you can see there in the clothes she's wearing, that's seductive, but the language is religious. Seductive, religious tactics. All right, that's what it is. It's right there in the picture. They always, what's that saying? A picture tells 1,000 words. Oh, I love that saying. All right. So this is called reenactment. This is called reenactment of trauma patterns. The person unconsciously repeats old strategies in new settings because the nervous system only knows that this is how I get attention, validation, or love. So ultimately, this is about her seeking attention seeker. All right. And I've seen that other girl that preaches that's on here, and I've let you be on here and share the live and do it because I want you to hear as well, Chair. Because I'll be doing you soon. All right. Flirtatious preaching and psychology. So the Children of God, which was a religious cult back in the day, they used to get the women to go out and literally get men from the street and let them blow their back out and then bring them back to the cult. Yeah. So that's a more extreme version of it. But it's just that ideology of the women using their outer appearance to get what they want, to lure the guys in, to charm them, to whatever. But they're using what they've got to seduce them to come in. All right. And all the girls do it. Hey, lay your roof. All the girls do it. So, you know, they know when a guy likes them and they're coming there because they like them. They know they're not coming for the service. They're just acting like they don't know what's up, but they know what's up, Chair. That's why a lot of the time these pretty girls, a lot of guys, they just follow them to the setting. And then a girl like that will be elevated. They've just put a bandage over the trauma, so she's all right for maybe a year. She could even go good for 3 years, and then all of a sudden she falls with a guy. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because she had that trauma, and she had that. That's what she was doing. She hasn't changed. She was selling herself before. Now she's doing it covered with hyper religiosity. Nothing's changed. So that's going to be the outcome at a certain point. It's not because of demons or whatever. Do you understand what I'm saying to you guys? That's why I'm sitting here waiting. I'm just waiting, Chair. Because either way, if they get married, it's a dub. If they don't get married and they think it's outside of it, it's a dub, because they've got that indoctrination and they're going to have to deprogram and deconstruct to even be free and even look at their youth and say, I LOVE this youth. You know them ones. Do you know how many gal them I know that have suffered from postnatal depression and not been able to bond and have an attachment with their child because of how broken down the ideologies about kids out of wedlock and stuff. Guys, this stuff goes deep, Chair. I was in there for 18 years. I've seen absolutely every situation you could imagine. And then on top of that, coming out of it and people then giving me the missing pieces to the puzzle. Because remember, I was disassociated. So now when I come back and I'm kicking back and I'm sitting back and reflecting and healing and going over this in my mind, I'm like, raw, this is really what they were doing up. Okay. Well, listen, now I know better. I'm doing better in it. So I'm on here and I'm doing what I need to do, Chair. All right. Oh, why did they give me these words? Okay, so this type of flirtatious spirituality, we've seen this historically in cults like the Children of God. Blurred lines between sexuality and evangelism, coined flirty fishing. Even when not that extreme, a convert can confuse intimacy with evangelism, using sexuality to bridge the gap. So remember that even their mindset on things is very skewed. They're just coming straight out of the world Do you understand what I'm saying? So they're still using a lot of the survival skills that they've been using for their whole life. That's how they've been survived, yeah. Pretty privilege, like getting what you want. Like it's the same vibe. It's just become born again. It's the same vibe, yeah. It's the same vibe. It's the same vibe. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. And a lot of guys will just follow gal them like this because on an average day, like before she was indoctrinated, she would have never even been seen walking down the street with someone like that. So now that she's in that setting and everything's, the birds are flying, my head is in the clouds, skip, skip, skip. I'm going to go to a retreat where we're all going to sit down amongst the clouds and we're going to sing Kumbaya, my, you know, it's like that. You know, it's like that, chair. It's like that, chair. And you expect us to sit here and be like, this is normal. All right, babe. Salade in the car is lay your roof in here as well. All right. Defense mechanism. Flirtation can act as a shield. It prevents deep rejection because if the listener rejects the message, at least they were responding to her persona. This is self-objectification and a way of protecting the vulnerable core self. So, and this is what made me clock her, because I've just been watching her for a while. When she did that little outreach with the police officer and she put, oh, he's engaged, that's why he was acting shy or something. And I just thought, why did you, that's let's get this right, chair. Self-objectification. Self-objectification. Yeah? That's what she was doing there. Because I thought, why that caption? What was that even about? And I didn't understand why she felt the need to have to put that up, because no one got saved. Did you save anyone in Carnival? Did you talk to anyone dressed like that? What was the purpose? Attachment plus approval seeking. If she has so let's say she has insecure attachment, especially anxious attachment. The urge to be seen, heard, desired may slip into her preaching style, especially with authority figures like police officers. Ooh, that's a deep one, isn't it, that? And again, she's going to be she's grieving at the moment as well. So she's going through the 5 stages of grief. Remember when we look at the Kubler-Ross model? Oh, what's the first one? It's is it delusions? Oh. Anyway, you need to get to acceptance. You go through many different stages like bargaining. I'm so tired, guys. I just can't get it together. But it's different stages of grief anyway. And your perception of reality is also distorted because you've just lost someone. And that's why, you know, jump into a cult is you're just going to be completely zoned out. Airy fairy in the clouds. Everything is a beautiful day. Even though I just lost my family member the other day, the Lord Jesus is good. You know, it's that there's no real, you know, they're not dealing with the trauma. Do you get what I'm saying? Then they're not dealing with what's happened. It's just putting a bandage over the trauma. And it's just putting a bandage and covering it with hyper religiosity. Yeah, the first stage is denial. That's it. Denial, bargaining, what's the other one? And the bargaining is when you're trying to like say to God, oh, please bring them back. I'll do anything if you bring them back, like that. So darling, respectfully, if you're still in that phase, you haven't progressed through the stages of grief. And when you don't get to the stage of acceptance, truly in your heart, not covered with hyper religiosity, truly in your heart, accepting that the person that you love the most in your whole world is not here anymore, that's when you can move out of the bubble of grief. Yeah. But again, they've got a lot of spell work, cauldrons and potions, you know, with the false doctrine that they believe, you know, they can say things and, you know, when they're doing these prayers or whatever, they're getting delivered, things are coming out, you know, they believe all of that. And that's why these gyaldem are so hyper religious. Then 7 years later, they're living in their council flat with their baby out of wedlock, because it's like, you know, I've seen so many girls like this, and I'm not saying that that's what her situation's going to be. I'm just saying that I've seen a lot of girls, you know, start like this, and that's just what's happened. I've seen it over and over again, actually. Yeah. So a lot of these gal them that have been doing this for 5 minutes, I would really humble yourself. All right. Okay. And then we're going to look at, so now we're going to look at why it's dangerous for her. So pred risk. Flirtatious evangelism makes her vulnerable to preds. Like when she was giving them the roses, like in the car, and they wind down the window and they were like, yeah, when they get to know you, like why you would even put that in? Like it just doesn't make any sense, because you've got to use wisdom and common sense. She knows someone like that is going to stop for her, because that's the type of man them that she would have gone for in the past. She can't do it with all of the guys, but she knows she's going to get a definite reaction. Like they're going to definitely stop the car and take the rose from her. So that's a pred risk, and it's flirtatious evangelism. So it makes her vulnerable to preds, including manipulative men in religious spaces who may see her as ungodly but usable. So people like her, they usually get taken advantage of in these spaces because of that mindset, and the guys sniff it. The preds in there, they know that they know the ones that they can get through. Do you understand? Spiritual exploitation. Leaders could encourage this behavior, as seen in Children of God or hyper-charismatic cults, framing it as a tool for evangelism while actually exploiting her. Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? Ross Clark. Ooh, because they do use everything about you. Like if they see that you're like a chatty person, like you're a good negotiator, you're a person that can talk, then they'll start grooming you. Like, I can see the Lord has called you as a street preacher, an evangelist, a prophet. And then they go to these events, and the main goal is ego, supply for the narcissistic leader, and to thief their money. And then they're like, whoever feels like they've got a car to be a prophet, and they all go running up. So there's that thrill seeking. They're running to get a word, because then that feeds the delusions, and they've got to stay in this, like they've got to get the DRUG. They're always shooting. They've got to get that DRUG. Do you understand? So because they're not thinking about their real life. They're not thinking about the parent that unalive. They're not thinking about all of the trauma. They're not thinking about the essay, the guy eating from the grapevine. All of that's passed away. Behold, the new is here, the new me. And now I preach on the streets, and I go to all of these events, and I'm so brave. All right, girl. Okay. So they will see that type of way in her, because especially when you're just coming from the world, there's a lot you have to shed off you. But when you've got like a dodgy leader, or most of them are malignant narcissists, they'll see that way in her, and they'll GROOM her to go out and be using that to bring souls to Christ. Okay, because they did the same thing to me. Psychological splitting. She may live in conflict between being holy and being seductive, which creates inner shame, confusion, and cognitive dissonance. So we see the cognitive dissonance because she's wearing that, and then the sign says need a prayer. That's a disconnect. That picture is giving cognitive dissonance. So and it's giving religious psychosis, babe. You don't need to come and tell me I need to be a doctor to whatever. We can see by the pictures giving religious psychosis and cognitive dissonance. All right, my love? Because the two don't mix. The two don't mix. Rahab, Jezebel, Delilah, and then the canon. The two don't mix. That's how I was taught anyway, that the two don't mix, all right? Because I'll put the picture up of me before I go, when I was doing up this outside in these streets, okay? I would have felt like wearing this, that I would have caused my brother to sin, to fall. Because if my memory serves me correctly, I do believe that Christ says something along the lines as, we could use as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But also, he who is without sin, like cast the first stone, because as you think it in your heart, so is he. So if a guy looks at her in a certain way, he's already committed that sin in his heart. Like he's already committed the adultery in his heart by thinking it. And I'm sure there's a lot of guys, because she's quite shapely. The thing about me is I could go out in that. That's why I wear my little bits and whatever, because I'm 5'9", I'm tall, and I'm just a stick, so I could wear short things and it could be okay. But when you're shapely, especially when you're going out and you're doing that up in the name of God, I just don't think it's glorifying the Lord. That's all. That's just my 2 pence as a result of being in there for 18 years. But you little kids outside in these streets are actually telling me that me being 18 years in the church, God, it doesn't mean anything. But one thing I will tell you is that if I did go and evangelize in Carnival, and I wouldn't have done that because it's a sin back then, but if I had gone and done that, I definitely wouldn't have been wearing this ensemble. All right, my loves, that's all you need to know, sweetie. All right. Then we've got burnout and disillusionment. When this strategy doesn't win, Oh, okay. When this strategy doesn't win souls or leaves her hurt, she may feel even more broken and spiral deeper into shame. So that's, again, if she is getting validation, you know, of winning these souls or views or whatever, that these things don't last forever. And the thrill and the way you feel in the beginning, that doesn't last the whole time. One thing I will tell you though is if she ends up in one of these predominantly type of settings, church cults, she will be held as, you know, they're going to make a big fuss over her because we all know it's whitey coded in there and they do love her, you know what face. So she's in there. They call me Oyembo and Obroni, and look at me compared to this girl. Yeah. So they're going to lap that up. But, you know, when we first saw Angel doing up her thing and like, oh, I'm going to go to, you know, all the survivors were saying, oh, I hope she's going to be all right in there, boy, because she's your typical, like, textbook appetizer and side dessert that them pred love in these settings, chair. So if you're listening, girl, make sure, stay safe in these streets, chair, because, you know, there's a lot of risk factors here, chair. All right. Why it's dangerous for others. Mixed signals. Non-believers, especially men, they may not know if she's evangelizing or flirting, which could escalate into inappropriate dynamics or harassment. Just like the guy that she was giving the rose to in the car, who clearly was trying to move to her. And she knew that, you know what, she was probably attracted to him and he was attracted to her. Because remember I told you that's how I met my ex, because of the trauma of my boyfriend unaliving. Remember, I saw him, he looked like my ex, and I pulled up and I went to go and evangelize. And that was because of the unresolved trauma. So the unresolved trauma will make you be outside doing crazy things in these streets. You know what I mean? Because imagine, like, you're sitting in your house. That's the house where you were with your parent who unalived. There's bare memories. It's so fresh. You don't want to be by yourself in your own thoughts. And that's why it attracts a lot of people with trauma, especially young people, these settings, because there's something always going on. They try and put something on all the time for these kids because they know they have core morbid traumatic pasts and they can't sit with themselves. All right. Undermines credibility. It blurs the message. So instead of people focusing on the gospel, people focus on her body and behavior. Like this picture, I didn't even look at the sign. I just thought, oh, that's, you know, she's given hourglass. You know, I can see a lot of leg. I can see your shirt. I can see everything. I could probably guess your cup size by how tight the top is, yeah. So, you know, it's just not a good representation of the faith. And again, this is why I think that people are newly born again. I think they should study to show themselves approved before they step out. Yeah. Focus and work on your own salvation with fear and trembling before you start focusing on others. But because you have such a traumatic past and, you know, background, this is why you're doing what you're doing, because this is your coping mechanism. If you didn't have all these new people that you met in this wonderful life and you were going out and adventure and doing all of that, you'd be sitting at home thinking about your bereavement. So that's it's filling a void. It's filled a void. There's no healing. It's just filled a void. That's all it's done. That's all it does. This also reinforces unhealthy church scripts if a group or leader endorses or normalizes this type of externalized manipulation and evangelism, okay? So again, you know, you have to think about the setting that she's in as well. What kind of setting could you possibly be in that would encourage this type of behavior for you to step out like that and be doing up this? It's all connected. Because even if the setting that she goes to, no, it isn't right, they don't want to risk, you know, speaking to one of their handful of, you know, whitey faces in the church cult that helps their promo. They want it in there. Do you know what I mean? There's all these underlying things with these type of cults as well. So we have to, and I'm not saying this is the situation, guys. I'm just saying this is, you know, I'm giving hypothetical situations and using her as a case study. Remember that. So theoretical frameworks that can explain this. So Freud's repetition compulsion. So trauma survivors unconsciously repeat past dynamics, e.g. using sexuality as power in new situations. So, you know, again, like the views, everything is because she's a lighty, she's got that body, you know what I mean? There's a certain aesthetic, it looks like, with these type of influencers. And also that's her, again, I've said that's her survival mechanism. Like that's what she knows. Like that's how she survives. You get me? Like, girl like this, when they've got that kind of body, like when I seen in her testimony, she was like, oh, I used to move a bad man. No, babe, you used to get rinsed, not moved. There's a difference, because girl like you have that kind of body, chair. Do you understand what? There's a big difference, chair. So it's about being honest with self and unpacking the trauma. Yeah? Okay, Jung's shadow projection. So again, this may be, she may be projecting her unresolved relationship with sexuality into her spiritual persona, not integrating her shadow self. So even that ego unalivement, it's like that she's still trying to hold on to that part of herself. And I don't buy this thing anymore. Like, oh, people have only been saved for a few minutes. But if you're going to be going online, being a representative, going out and preaching, telling people how to become born again, live their life, this, that, and the third, if you want to judge others, be prepared to get judged outside in these streets. Works both ways, my love. Attachment theory. Early unmet needs for safety and validation create adult behaviors that mix intimacy with performance. And again, this is just a hypothetical hypotheses around, you know, girls like Angel. So I'm using her as a, like, she represents something. I'm not saying this is her life, or because as I said, I don't know the girl from nowhere, chair. But just from what I'm seeing, I'm psychoanalyzing, I'm using parts of that to create a case study for us to understand that there are very vulnerable females like this in these settings, okay? And remember, we can see it through their behavior, because a lot of them, they're actors, they can talk the talk, but we've got to see if you can walk the walk. That's the point, yeah? Objectification theory. Trauma and societal pressures teach women to self-objectify, measuring their worth through others' gaze, even in religious performance. So again, it is a performance, isn't it? And it's getting what you want through how you know best. But there's also another one called Emma Evangelist. You lot know I'm talking about? There's a girl, she's always coming out with her chest is always out. She's like a Z-cut. My girl is out here singing holy, and it's all that. And again, I don't care. I'm like, people should just be themselves. But when I got like, babe, I had to strip myself of everything. Like, I gave up everything. I was dressing like a nun, chair. So I just don't, you know, for me personally, if I was still in that space, I'd be looking at girl like this, like, ooh, we'd be looking at them like Philistines, like all sinners. In my cult anyway, we don't do this up, but I don't know where she goes. Again, as well, it's more like new age thingy. Like, then it's changed a lot. There's a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on. Religious psychosis, hyper-religiosity. Her grief plus unstable self plus hyper-religious performance can push her into manic states where preaching becomes a stage for unresolved psychological wounds. And also, you know, in her content, there's a lot of emotional instability. Like, one day she'll be crying about her mom, and then in the same, there's a lot of different things going on in the video, which do, you know, it does display hyper-religiosity, religious psychosis. And remember, you can get brief states of psychosis as well, because they're pretending for so long, and then the memories come back in somehow, some way. It could be a trigger, and they just break down, they just fall apart, because they're not going through that natural process of healing. It's like a quick fix. They've come in, they've had this, you know, love bombed, born again experience. They're in, they put the bandage on the trauma, they've met all these new friends, because the girl them in these spaces are fake, child. So you'll always have like these, yeah, let's go out and it's very manufactured. It's not real. They don't even know who they are, because it's not their identity. They've put on the identity. It's a false identity. No one's dealing with their real issues. No one's dealing with their real trauma. No one's talking about the real issues. Do you understand? And you can see that the same birds of a feather flock together. So them gal there that still want to hold on to that eggshellized, like, you know, that identity, that part of themselves, like these, it's like we're the new cool ones. We can street preach and still be, you know, in and cool with the world. And, you know, you don't have to be a Christian. That's what they're on. That's what they're on, chair. Listen, all I'm going to tell you, Megan Co, is that, you see, that little book that you're dealing with and the indoctrination is very powerful spell work, chair. So that's why a lot of gal them, it's just a natural, repetitive cycle that happens. But let's see if my predictions are right. I mean, who am I? What do I know? All right, so guys, I'm going to finish up here. And then I'm going to come back a bit later, because I've got to start my child's hair, chair. And then I'm going to come back, and then we're going to just, I think, probably just go over this a little bit more, and then I think we might go into, I don't know what we'll go into. We'll see, chair. It's a surprise. Life is full of surprises. Do you lot remember that? Surprise, surprise, Cilla Black, chair. All right. So in short, this is how I'm going to summarize it. This is my takeaway reflection. In short, this young woman's style of preaching is less about spreading the gospel and more about reenacting old trauma scripts through a new religious lens. Her unresolved grief, need for validation, and internalized use of sexuality as a survival tool are bleeding into her evangelism. This is why we see this. While it may give her a temporary sense of power or belonging, or even peace or distraction, it puts her at high risk of being harmed, exploited, or further fragmented psychologically. So Angel, Meg and Co, good luck, girls. Guys, I'll be back later. Love you.